Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k. In this video we've got a Necrons list video, and this list I'm going to be taking to my next up and coming 2000 point game. So we will be doing a battle report on that game at some point later on, probably at some point early March, mid-March I'll be releasing that video. But for today I thought I'd share the list, show you my tactics, and then take it to the battlefield and give you the results in the battle report, if that makes sense, to kind of work out how good this list actually is. So let's get into this. It's going to be the Canoptek court list from the Necrons Detachment. So we are playing 2000 points, and we're just going to quickly go through the power matrix in case you're not aware of what the power matrix is. It's the Canoptek court detachment rule. Your deployment zone is always the power matrix. If you own half the objectives or more in the no man's land, they're considered your power matrix, and the same thing for your opponent's deployment area. If you own at least half of those, that's your power matrix. If you're within your power matrix, you get to reroll all your hit rolls with Canoptek or Cryptek units, and if you're not within your power matrix, you're just re-rolling ones to hit with Canoptek and Cryptek units. So it's fairly straightforward. You basically want to go Cryptek and Canoptek. So let's get into the list then. So the Warlord is what I meant to say of this list is just a measly Plasmancer. I mean, Warlord isn't massive this edition. There are some things that relate in terms of stratagems to other factions and things, but for this game it shouldn't matter too much. The Plasmancer is going to be the Warlord, 55 points. Harbinger Destruction is the main reason for taking him, 5+ critical hit rolls for the unit, as well as Living Lightning. And he's going to be going with 10 Necron Immortals. I love my Immortals this edition. I normally go Tesla, partly because they've got the Assault keyword, so you could advance and still fire, or advance and still do some sort of deploy teleport homers or cleanse or something because you're still eligible to fire. But with that Plasmancer, they've got critical hits on a 5+, and they've got sustained hits 2 on top of that. So any 5+ rolls are basically going to be 3 hits instead of 1, which I really love. Now, because the Immortals are with a Plasmancer, they've got the Cryptek keyword because they share keywords. Therefore, they're going to be re-rolling ones naturally to hit, and potentially re-rolling all the hit rolls if they're within the power matrix. They already re-roll wound rolls over 1, and potentially all the rune rolls if your opponent's enemy unit is on an objective. So Immortals can almost re-roll everything, and critical hits on a 5+. It's an extra super powerful combo for this detachment. That's 140 points for the Immortals. I did have 40 points left for this entire list, so I've gone back to this unit and placed the Royal Warden in there. The Royal Warden, only 40 points. It basically means you're not going to get tied up because you can fall back with the Immortals and still fire. And as you've just seen a moment ago, when they're firing, they're doing work. When they're re-rolling hits, re-rolling wounds, 5+ critical hits, there's just a lot of damage, a lot of volume. So being able to fall back and still fire is great. And you've got the, what's it called, Engrammatic, it was Engrammatic, I said it right the first time. Engrammatic logic, so you can remove battle shock for a unit within 12 once per battle. So that little combination there is costing me 235 points. That's unit number 1. I'm going to take my Katana. I always take the Nightbringer at the moment. I love the Nightbringer. I know who I'm going up against, so I mean that's a little bit of a clue here. I know that I'm going up against Tyranids. It's a bit of a spoiler. So there's no need to take a Void Dragon. I mean the Void Dragon's good anyway, but the Void Dragon's especially good against vehicles. Tyranids don't have vehicles. So I'm bringing the Nightbringer. But to be honest, I usually bring the Nightbringer anyway. It's usually my go-to. So he's going to be 255 points. He's just extra tanky, isn't he? Toughness 11, 4+ invulnerable save, 12 wounds, halving damage, 5+ feel no pain save on top of that. And then he's got the ranged weapon of Gaze of Death, which is pretty big in itself. D6+3 in terms of damage. And the main party piece, of course, is the Scythe of the Nightbringer, which could be absolutely brutal going up against anything it gets hold of. So I tend to use Rapid Ingress when I use a Nightbringer. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the tactics section at the end of the video. I'm going to have all the maps out and show you where I'm going to try to deploy them and what what stratagem I intend on buying with my CP throughout the game. But let's move into the next character. I've gone with a Technomancer. We know where this is going. Technomancer provides a 5+ feel no pain save for the unit and heals D3 lost wounds to a nearby unit as well. 60 points. Of course, I'm bringing the Canoptek Wraiths. This is the Canoptek Court. Why wouldn't you? 6 of them, 220 points for the 6. I usually take the Particle Casters as well as the Vicious Claws. That's my go-to combination. I'm not keen on the Whip Coils, and I'm not keen on the trans-dimensional beamer thingies. So this is the combination I normally go to, but they're super tough, super fast, moving 10 inches, toughness 6, 3 plus 4 plus, 4 wounds apiece, 5 plus feel no pain with the Technomancer. They do damage in the movement phase if you get to move over models. They're just so good, and for the points, I still think they're so cheap. Keep that to yourself. So yeah, that unit combination is 280 points for the Technomancer and the Wraiths, and I'm going to double it. I'm going to do 2 units of that. I just brought myself 6 more Wraiths recently. You might have seen that in the Planet 40k Facebook group that we've got on Facebook, where I've been doing up some Wraiths recently. I do need a 3rd unit, but for now, 2 units is what I've got. So yeah, there's going to be 2 units of these with 2 Technomancers as well. Scoring unit, I need to think about some ways of scoring the further afield objectives from the secondaries missions. I've gone with 5 death marks. Nice and easy, 65 points. They've got deep strike, they've got the heavy keyword with precision, so they've got damage 2 snipers effectively. They've got hyperspace hunters as well, but I mainly use them just for the scoring. Everything else they've got is a bonus to me. A 65 point deep strike unit is dirt cheap, and they're on small bases as well, so you can easily get them in. I mean, a Hexmark destroyer could have been an alternative option here. I think I did have 5 points left over, so I could have changed that to a Hexmark. If you want to use this list, maybe you can change that to a Hexmark if you want. But I wanted the extra shots, I suppose, from the death marks at characters. Next in the list, I've got 2 units of 6 Canoptek Scarabs. Canoptek Scarabs, that's a total of 160 points for the 2 units. Now, what I like about these is, well, first of all, it's the Canoptek Court, but they're not really they're not really there for their damage output. They're really there for screening your backfields. They're also there to be doing those action kind of secondaries, whether it's cleanse, again, deploy teleport homers. It could be engage, it could be behind enemy lines if they can get that far. They are moving 10 after all. Maybe it's investigate signal, things like that. But also, you've got the self-destruction ability, so you can blow one up for D3 wounds, or a flat 3 if you've got a 6. And the Chittering Swarm ability as well to be able to remove objective control from your opponent's units. Now the reason I'm taking these guys is because my next units, I've got 2 single units of Canoptek Spiders. Now spiders are a luxury pick this edition, but when you're playing the Canoptek Court, you can throw them in there. 150 points for the 2 individual ones here. The reason I've gone individual with them, because I've got 2 units of Scarabs and maybe I want to separate combos completely. I don't want to have everything in the same location. I want to still be able to be replenishing Scarabs in different locations, which is their main ability, isn't it? It's the Canoptek Swarm, so in the command phase you bring a Scarab back. And then of course you're doing reanimation protocols as well, so on top of that, that's great. Fabricate a Claw Array for the Feel No Pain save for vehicles. I will have some vehicles in this list. And the Gloom Prisms for 5 plus Feel No Pain save against psychic attacks. Again, I'm going against Tyranids for this matchup, so there may be some psychic attacks, but that's not the reason I brought them. They're just there for the Scarabs really, but it's an extra bonus if there are psychic attacks incoming. Next, we've got some more Canoptek stuff. We've got 2 Canoptek Doomstalkers. So these are the vehicles. In fact, the Spiders are vehicles too, so they're going to count within their own Feel No Pain aura, but the Doomstalkers will as well. The Doomsday Blaster has blast and heavy, 48-inch range, it's strength 14, 3 damage a pop. What I like about these guys, or these machines, these vehicles, is they can fire Overwatch on a 5+. I'll definitely be making use of that stratagem. It's done me well in the past. 270 points for the 2 models there, so 135 points each. And then we've got some more heavy artillery, which is 2 units of 3 Locust Heavy Destroyers. I've always got Locust Heavy Destroyers in my list, they're just too good to leave. And this time I'm clumping them into actual units, so it's going to have 3 and 3 with the Gauss Destructors. Heavy lethal hits again, strength 14, the flat 6 damage on the damage department, re-rolling 1s against the right targets, monsters and vehicles. 150 points a unit, 300 points for the 2 units. So I've got quite a lot of firepower. 6 Locust Heavy Destroyers, 2 Doomstalkers, and the Nightbringer, as well as the Immortals as well, I guess. We've got some melee output as well with the Spiders, the Scarabs, the Nightbringer, and of course the Canoptek Wraiths. So we've got quite a balanced list, I believe. Let's move into what I'm going to do with my CP. The first one I want to mention here is Curse of the Cryptek. I'm definitely going to make sure I've got at least 1 CP in the bank for Curse of the Cryptek, because it's been an absolutely underrated stratagem every time I play the Canoptek Court. So just go through this quickly in case you're not aware what it is. So basically in the shooting phase or fight phase, if you lose your Cryptek, if it gets destroyed, you can pop this stratagem, and then from Until the rest of the game, any Canoptek units get a +1 to the hit roll and +1 to the wound roll. Now we're already re-rolling the hit rolls, and well, hit rolls over 1, potentially all the hit rolls, but a +1 is going to definitely aid even more. Maybe it's a Canoptek Doomstalker with a +1 to hit, which means you can now move because then heavy won't be a factor, so you can move, get into a better firing lane. Or Canoptek Wraiths, now hitting on 3s, re-rolling everything. And a +1 to wound is massive, you know, massive, massive, massive. If you've got Strength 6 Vicious Claws going up against Toughness 9 monsters, you're wounding them on 4s. You're wounding them on 4s because you've got a +1 to the wound roll. But that only applies to Canoptek units, but I think it's still such a great CP to spend on a great stratagem. The second thing I'm going to be using is reactive subroutines, which is 1 CP again, and it's done in your movement phase, or your opponent's movement phase rather. As soon as they've finished a normal, advance or fallback move within 9 inches of a Canoptek unit, you can effectively move your Canoptek unit 6 inches in any direction. It could be the Wraiths, those Wraiths can go forward, or maybe it could be the Canoptek Scarabs to start blocking stuff off and screening stuff off. Maybe it's the Doomstalker to be able to back off so it doesn't get charged. There's lots of things you can do with that, so I'll definitely be looking at using CP for that. There's also the Fire Overwatch stratagem for the Doomstalker. 5+ critical hit rolls, you're re-rolling everything, don't forget, because you're likely going to be within your power matrix with the Doomstalker because it likely stays back in your home area. So re-rolling all the hit rolls, hitting on 5s in Overwatch, it's not even in your turn. Definitely making the most out of that big Doomsday Blaster. And the other CP I would like to be using is Rapid Ingress for the Nightbringer. I'll be doing it in your opponent's movement phase. You can bring the Nightbringer from reserve, so start off the battlefield. Effectively, he's going to come in as if he's using strategic reserves from the side of the battlefield. What it means is, okay, he might get shot at during that shooting phase. Your opponent wasn't planning on shooting it, so it's going to mess their thought process up. But when it gets to our turn, we've got a 6-inch movement because the Nightbringer moves 6 inches, and that would mean you're about 3 inches, maybe a bit more, depending on where you actually rapid ingressed. 3 inches for the charge. Very simple charge, so you can do the rapid ingress to get something nice and chewy for the Nightbringer to get hold of. But that's the main stratagems that I'll be using for this list. There's of course other Canoptek Court stratagems that are available, like doing the reanimation protocols if you get charged and things like that. That may come on the fly, but these are the 4 that I would like to be using quite frequently. Now tactics wise, let's talk about tactics for this list, what I'm going to be planning on doing. Let me get comfortable because my foot hurts a bit. Right, so let's start with those Canoptek Wraiths. That's the main party piece of this list, isn't it? I've got 2 units of Wraiths. No Man's Land usually has 2 if not 3 objectives in there, so we want the Canoptek Wraiths to be 1 unit at a time, jumping onto those objectives in the No Man's Land. So 1 unit of Wraiths on one unit of Wraiths on the other one. They are going to be doing it pretty quickly because they're moving 10 inches, so they're likely going to be quick, but they're also opening that power matrix as early as possible. End of every phase, you're checking for control of an objective, so you'll be opening that power matrix nice and early for the entire No Man's Land. If you can get 2, you've pretty much got it. It might even be 1. If there's only 2 objectives in the No Man's Land, then you only need 1. But obviously, primary objective scoring is a thing as well. So we want to be jumping on both of them. Wraith units are pretty difficult to get rid of. We already mentioned the toughness, the amount of wounds, the invuln save, the feel no pain save. They are very difficult to shift, and I don't plan on moving them away once they're there. They can just stay there all game, surround the objective, fend it off. If anyone wants to try and tangle with the Wraiths, they can. At best, it's just going to be a void contest. They're just going to tie each other up, but we're going to have the OC on the objective, and our toes will be on the objective, and your opponent's unit likely won't be. If they manage to sneak units on, fair enough. If they're battle line units, such as your troops, your basic infantry troops that have got OC2, they're easier to kill, so I wouldn't expect them to live. And anything big, I mean, let's think about Tyrannus for a moment, because that's what I'm going to be playing. Anything big, let's just say a Horospex comes onto it. Horospex has got what? What's the OC of a Horospex? Let's double check this at the moment. Let's do this while we're on record. It's only got OC4. So even if something like that kind of big threat comes around, it's only got OC4. So who's really winning that? I mean, even if we don't kill each other, we're holding the objective at the end of the day. So I don't mind that trade-off. The Nightbringer, what I'm going to be doing with the Nightbringer, we already mentioned it, rapid ingress. I mean, it depends on the deployment map. In some maps, it's quite difficult to do the rapid ingress. If you're on the diagonal maps, then you've not got much space. I mean, the left, it depends on the map, I suppose, but one side is shorter than the other side. Your opponent's deployment zone is like that, which means that one of the sides will be very highly screened off, very massively screened off, in fact, because it's their deployment zone. So you've only got one side, but you've kind of already got that as part of your deployment zone, so it's not needed. You can just start on the battlefield. Yes, you've got the flexibility of moving, but on a lot of other maps, like Dawn of War, for example, Hammer and Anvil, jumping in from the sides is definitely a great tactic to use. He's going to come on, he's going to take a bit of shooting, of course, but once he gets in, easy charge, take out the big and bad things that your opponent's got, and move on to the next target. The Locust Heavy Destroyers, they probably won't be moving much ideally because they've got the heavy keyword, they've got 48-inch range, they don't need to move. I've got an itchy nose now. They don't really need to move, so they're going to be firing. Make sure they're in good firing lanes, targeting your enemy units that've got the, the big bads, the anti-tanks, anything that can kill our stuff from afar. We should be targeting them first. Get rid of it. In fact, let's talk about those spiders. The spiders and the scarabs, they're going to be a combination. I'm probably not going to be going far with those. They're probably going to be defending my Locust Heavy Destroyers and the Doomstalkers. The Doomstalkers will be there and thereabouts. They've got the option of moving a bit forward because the Doomstalkers can reroll all the hit rolls. So they may forego that heavy keyword just to get a better firing lane. But really, those scarabs and the spider will be screening off large areas of the battlefield, casting up our bigger stuff, just making it more difficult for your opponent to get those gaunts in. If they're playing bugs, again, if you're going up against Tyranids, if they're using loads of little bugs, they're going to struggle to get in. If they're using big bugs, they've got to fight their way through, and so on. So that's kind of a screening unit there. What else do we have? Let's have a look at this list. Death marks. Death marks are simply there for scoring purposes. I mean, what I like about Deep Strike units in general is as soon as you put them into Deep Strike, your opponent has to wonder, right, I need to screen off the back. I need to screen off the back because as soon as they get a card that says behind enemy lines and so on, they're going to get in there instantly. So your opponent is now going to be a little bit more reserved when it comes to their deployment. And their first turn as well, in fact. Especially if they go second. So they're going to be a little bit more reserved, and when our death marks find a spot, they're going in. Going in likely into the corners, or into a spot that will definitely score us some points, and yeah, they're just going to take shots with their snipers until they die. Until they die, effectively. It's only 65 points, and if they score some stuff, that's enough for me. Next, we've got those, we've spoken about the Doomstalkers already. That just leaves the Immortals, really. I mean, they're a powerhouse within themselves. They've got all those rerolls. The Plasmancer's in there. I didn't have an enhancement with the Plasmancer, so I didn't have enough change left over to put an enhancement on. Don't think they need it anyway, to be honest with you. When you're rerolling everything with sustained hits 2, critical hits on a 5+, what more do you really need? And we're falling back and still being able to fire as well. So they're going to have a little bit more of a free roll. I mean, they've got a lot of OC on top of that, so they can look for a certain part of the battlefield. Maybe it's the third objective in the no man's land. Maybe they can go for that, terrorize anything that's on it, take over it with the OC 2 per model, and anything that comes near they can fire at it. That's probably the three objectives in the no man's land covered with the 2 Wraiths units and the Immortals unit. Now, of course, all these images that you've just seen in terms of the maps, that was Dawn of War. Now, of course, I might not be playing Dawn of War. There's 5 different map types. This is just sort of a rough sketch idea of what could happen. If it was Hammer and Anvil, you can maybe modify it slightly to fit that. You've also got to factor in terrain. You've got to factor in, maybe there's an opportunity to play fixed. So if you're playing fixed, then maybe the death marks aren't doing what they're doing, and maybe the Nightbringer isn't doing what he's doing, and so on. If you're playing against a lot of OC or a very aggressive army like Orcs potentially, that could screw up your power matrix, so you've got to think about stuff like that. Or maybe the Scarab screen just gets completely deleted early on, and your Doomstalkers and your Locust Heavy Destroyers are vulnerable throughout the game. So there's lots of different things to think about, but that's the game, I suppose. The game is the game. Just giving you a rough idea of what I'm going to be doing with this list, but as I've already said to you, I know I'm playing Tyranids. I don't know the Tyranid list. It could be all monsters, it could be all bugs, it could be a bit of both. I don't know the detachment. Either way, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm going to give you a bit of a report back with this list, with that, bad a report. So guys, you have to let me know what you think of this list and predictions. What am I going to do against Tyranids? Yeah, until next time, thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.